our children, we're over-medicating our entire population. Half the pharmaceutical drugs on earth are now sold here. 70% of the profits from pharmaceutical companies are from the United States, even though we only have 4.2% of the world's population. Not only that, but a recent study by Cochrane Collaboration founder Peter Ghosh found that pharmaceutical drugs are the third largest cause of death in our country after heart attacks and cancers. Oh, they're not making us healthier. We need community health initiatives. We need access to treatment. We need exercise. We need better food.
Okay, let me talk to you about one of those access points in treatment. And this highlights a problem we have in the federal Medicaid law. Since Medicaid's enactment, states have been prohibited from using Medicaid funds for care provided by institutions for mental disease. We refer to them as IMDs. These are psychiatric hospitals, residential treatment facilities with more than 16 beds. This is a
This terrain does not sit silent. It speaks to you, invites all to rise above the clouds to feel the sense
necessary care based on the illness that is being treated, and it has perpetuated unequal coverage in mental health care. So if you're confirmed, when you're confirmed, will you commit to working with me on repealing this discriminatory exclusion and ensuring equal access to mental health care for Medicaid beneficiaries?
Yes, Senator.
Thank you so much. I've got a question on PBM reform, one on artificial intelligence in healthcare. In the interest of time, I will yield back. I look forward to seeing you help make us healthy again.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator Lujan.
What? No. You're next. I'm next.
Excuse me, I made a mistake. It's Senator Cantwell.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and congratulations on your nomination, Mr. Kennedy. And I've been absent only because I've been in another hearing with the nominee to be the Commerce Secretary. So I will review everything that you've said today and look at that diligently. But one of the things that I wanted to discuss with you is I represent a very big innovation state, and innovation in healthcare specifically. Innovation like NIH funding to the Fred Hutch Cancer Center that helped develop the HPV vaccine, which has the potential to eliminate over 95% of cervical cancer. NIH also funds a lot of jobs and grants, nearly 11,000 people in the state of Washington, and over $1.2 billion worth of grants. So while I agree with you on healthy foods, I definitely am troubled by the medical research side of innovation and some of the things that you have said. In fact, this issue about laying off 600 employees at NIH, or giving the fact that, to quote, give infectious disease a break for 8 years. So we've had a chance to talk about this a little bit. But the most striking example of this is when COVID hit. And we were the first in the nation. We had the first case, and it really was the fast response by the University of Washington that really helped save lives. So I just want to know that, are you aware of how harmful these issues could be for public health? That public health in and of itself could be affected by these kind of anti-science views?
Senator, I have always been a science person, a pro-science person. I believe in evidence-based medicine and gold standard science. When I said, and I've explained this before you came in, that 600 people out of a workforce of 91,000 is pretty typical. Last year alone, President Biden replaced 3,000 people at HHS and 700 at NIH. I want to say this. I said give infectious disease a break because that's been the principal preoccupation. Infectious disease Chronic disease is 92%, accounts for 92% of deaths in this country, and almost nothing is studied at NIH about the etiology of our chronic disease epidemic.
But right
The
now,
money is going to infectious disease.
but
And
I get your point. It's an interesting point. The problem is we had to respond. And it's actually the Gates Foundation and a flu cohort that figured out what was wrong and that we had an outbreak of COVID that was going beyond the very first case. And so we had to build a very fast response. So I take this too. The University of Washington has conducted groundbreaking stem cell research on fetal tissue. To me, I know there's probably a lot of people that may not agree with this, but we're making regenerative heart tissue now at the University of Washington. So yes or no, do you commit to protecting stem cell research for scientific agencies if confirmed?
I will protect stem cell research. Stem cell research today can be done on umbilical cords, and you don't need fetal tissue.
You'll protect the laws that are on the books today and the research that's done.
My job is, Senator, to enforce the laws.
Okay, so I want to move to PBMs because PBMs are driving up drug prices. And one of the biggest things that we need to do here, I think, in a new administration is get a handle on everything that is driving up prices and lower them. The report found that PBMs generated $1.4 billion from spread pricing. That is where they are able to basically set the price, not reimburse pharmacies, and then pocket the rest. We've had bipartisan legislation in several different committees now to get at this. What do you think the solution is?
I think one of the really notable achievements of this panel was the PBM legislation that they put together in a bipartisan way. I haven't met a single senator, well, actually one only, but of the 60-odd senators that I talked to, all of them talked about PBMs and how important it was, and President Trump, during his first administration, pushed through a law pushed a law to give transparency to PBMs. It got overruled during the Biden administration. Luckily, this panel is resuscitating that. President Trump is absolutely committed to fixing the PBMs.
My time is running out, so I just want to clarify. You believe that we should pass these laws that now have been proposed in the Senate?
I haven't read the entire law, so I don't know, but I think that we need to reform the PBMs. I think we need to get rid of all of these vested interests that are draining money from the system.
Okay, somebody suggested, though, that you thought you should convene the PBMs and talk to them about some sort of self-regulation. So I am trying to distinguish between these people who basically are doing illegal activities and ripping off, really they're creating pharmacy deserts in my state. So I'm asking you whether you believe that we have to legislate in this area.
Again, I'm not being evasive. I just don't know exactly what the law says. I met with the PBMs. I met with pharma. My job is to meet with all the stakeholders. I've been meeting with stakeholders for 40 years. People I was suing, you want to hear from the other side.
Well,
that doesn't mean I would let the PBMs write their own ticket.
Okay, I think
I support the efforts of this committee to come up with bipartisan legislation. President Trump wants to get the excess profits away from the PBMs and send it back to primary care, to patients in this country, to high-quality health care.
I'll ask you for the record, since my time's expired, to look at the legislation that came out of the Commerce Committee that defines the legal activities that they are doing to drive up prices, and get us an answer for the record. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
In principle, I support that legislation.
Thank you. And let me just tell you the list as we have to move forward to the ending here. Senator Lujan will be next, followed by Senator Marshall, Senator Warnock, Senator Smith, Senator Young, and Senator Welch.
And let me say again, Mr. Chairman, this is a matter of such importance. A number of my colleagues would like a second round, and I think it would be important to offer, say, a modest amount of additional time to get into this on both sides. I know I have some questions, but I want my colleagues to have the opportunity to raise their concerns as well.
Well, I've said, as I have indicated to you, Senator Wyden, I'm not going to do a second round. I have been very generous with the senators. I think almost every single senator has had 7 minutes at least. And I will give you a second, as is our practice
I think
between the two of
I'll
us.
then divide my time up with my colleagues. I'll be
Okay,
even
you are
briefer.
welcome to do that.
Thank you.
Senator Lujan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Kennedy, when we met, you stated to me that it is not your goal to take away programs that work for Americans. Do you stand by that statement?
Yes, Senator.
Mr. Kennedy, do you know how many Americans rely on Medicaid?
It's about 72 million plus the 7 million kids who are on chips.
Appreciate that, 72 million. Yes or no, is it important that expectant mothers and newborns have access to health coverage? Is it important that expectant mothers and newborns have access to health coverage?
Absolutely, Senator.
Mr. Kennedy, do you know how many babies born in this country are covered through Medicaid?
I would guess, I don't know the answer, I would guess about 30 million.
I have it, Mr. Kennedy. About 41% or 1.4 million babies births are financed by Medicaid, according to the National Center for Health Statistics. Yes or no, do you believe that Medicaid is a critical program?
I believe that Medicaid is a critical program, but that it's not working as well as it ought to be. And President Trump has asked me to make it work better, that most Americans are not happy with it, that the premiums are too high, the deductibles are too high, and everybody's getting sicker. Too much money is going to
Mr.
the
Kennedy?
insurance industry.
I have a series of yes or no questions. They're pretty simple. Because you heard we're not going to get a second round of questions, I ask for your indulgence to be able to get through them yes or no. In New Mexico, as you know, Medicaid is often measured state by state. It might surprise you if you look at some of those surveys. In New Mexico, the response was 90% of New Mexicans on Medicaid report satisfaction getting care, 80% getting specialist care, 85% getting urgent care, 95% ease of filings out of focus. Not to pick on any one of my colleagues, but in Louisiana, 86% of people on Medicaid are satisfied with their interactions. 83% are satisfied getting care. 85% are satisfied getting specialized care. 82% getting urgent care. I can go on state by state, but we don't have the time today. Yes or no, do you support cutting Medicaid or reducing, and especially in an area where you and I spoke about with the federal investment in Medicaid, which is known as FMAP?
President Trump has not told me that he wants to cut Medicaid. He's told me to make it better.
Do you support cutting, yes or no? Let me ask you this way, since it's only about
I
President
support
Trump.
making it better, Senator.
If President Trump asked you to cut
Arnold Chevrolet Buick wants you to start the new year in a new ride. Drive a new 2025 Chevy Equinox LT. Lease.
you don't want to answer, I'll move on. Do you know?
I'm going to work,
Mr. Kennedy, Mr. Kennedy, you don't want to answer, I'll move on. Do you know how many states will end? Mr. Chairman, if I may pause my time. So I understand that people are getting asked to leave if they stand up with signs, but there's a lot of other as well, Mr. Chairman. So it needs to be extended to everyone. As Mr. Kennedy said, we should respect each other when we have a difference of opinion. We're just trying to do our jobs here and trying to ask questions. That's all. And that's all I'm doing with Mr. Kennedy, folks. So I just hope that we can do
Senator
that.
Lujan, you are right, and I ask the audience to please be respectful.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that very much. Mr. Kennedy, do you know how many states will end their Medicaid expansion if the federal share of Medicaid drops?
Well, there's 40 states that have signed on to the expansion. So,
It's a smaller number. So it's 9 states would quickly have to end their expansion because of the laws that they have. That's about 4 million folks across the country. And in New Mexico, Iowa, and Idaho, they have triggers that it would immediately have to go into effect if, in fact, that gets cut. The reason I'm asking those questions is there's been a lot of chatter and conversations around Medicaid. Now, I agree we can always do better, and we must be doing better in America. But Medicaid has been shown to improve health outcomes, including mortality, quality of life, and access to preventative care as well. And there's some areas, Mr. Kennedy, that you and I touched on specific to Native American communities. One of the concerns that I have are these programs matter to folks. You shared your passion about caring for folks. I believed that passion. My question in this area is, as you know, when folks are doing research and they're going to check to see if medicine works on someone, if they're not included in that trial, it often doesn't help them. That's what all the evidence shows. So what are you going to do when programs are eliminated to require the inclusion of Native Americans in clinical trials when it comes to life-saving medicine?
I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that there's Native Americans in clinical trials. As I said to you when I visited your office, I spent 20% of my career working on Native issues. My family's been deeply involved with them. My father and uncle were big critics of the Indian Health Service, failure to deliver good health results or health care on the reservations. I'm going to bring a Native in for the first time in history into my central office, that all the major decisions in my office will be that he will have it. We've already interviewed a candidate, a very, very good candidate, will have direct impact on all the major offices. One of my priorities is to improve.
I appreciate that. I have a follow-up in that space specifically. Will you commit to finalizing the congressionally mandated FDA guidance to increase clinical trial diversity?
Just repeat that again. I'm sorry,
Will you
Senator.
commit to finalizing the congressionally mandated FDA guidance to increasing clinical trial diversity?
Yes.
I appreciate that. Will you commit to reinstating all of the pages that were eliminated and people that were fired from this administration that have this responsibility?
I cannot commit to that because I don't know who they are.
Well, there's
I'll
some
commit
folks
to
out there doing the
working
work.
with you to make sure
Kennedy,
those positions are adequately staffed.
I will follow up in writing in those specific areas because I think there's some commonality here, but answers matter. And so I'd like to get those as timely as possible. The last thing, Mr. Chairman, that I'll say is one of the conversations I had last before this hearing was with a family that I've been working with to work with my Republican colleagues when it comes to autism and federal programs and making a difference in these families' lives and this little girl's life. What I'm asking now, Mr. Chairman, is unanimous consent to enter into the record an article from Autism Speaks titled, quote, "Do Vaccines Cause Autism?" End quote. And I'll note that the first sentence states, quote, "Vaccines do not cause autism," end quote. Thank you. I yield back.
Without objection. And before we move on, we've had a request from several quarters for a quick restroom break. We will take a 5-minute recess. I'm sorry to those remaining 5 or 6 senators who must wait a few minutes, but we will have a quick break. We will be back as soon as we can. This committee will continue and come out of recess and go back into session. Before we go to you, Senator Marshall, I'd like to just tell everybody the remaining list. Senator Marshall, Senator Warnock, Senator Smith, Senator Young, and Senator Welch. And then I did indicate earlier that I would give another 5 minutes to Senator Wyden. I understand he has distributed that 5 minutes to a few of the other senators. So we will have a few more quick questions, and then we will proceed. And I would like to thank the audience again. I know we had a couple of outbursts earlier, but I want to thank the audience for being respectful and encourage the audience to continue to be respectful as we conclude the hearing. With that, Senator Marshall.
Thank you, Chairman. Obesity, diabetes, heart disease. Obesity, diabetes, heart disease account for probably 80% of health challenges in America. You know how many times I heard my friends across the aisle mention any three of those? I don't know if we've lost the forest for the trees here. Vaccine is a critical issue. I understand that. I don't see how Mr. Kennedy's position could be any more clear that he's going to support the vaccines, he's going to support the science and empowerment to parents and their doctors to make these choices. 60% of Americans have a chronic.
Is your marketing tech stack stuck in the past?
Indeed it is. Upgrade.
And this Make America Healthy Again movement is palpable to me. It started on the campaign trail in 2020 when moms I'd never met, that never involved in the political process, came up to me and said, look, I want to make these choices about my children with my doctor, not the federal government. That it's a very real thing. Moms, dads, grandparents across the country grab me and say, look, why do 20% of our children now, why are they on a prescription drug? So, Mr. Kennedy, what is your prescription to help make America healthy again? What's your vision? What does that look like to you?
Thank you, Senator Marshall. We're having epidemics of all these chronic illnesses, autoimmune diseases, neurological diseases, allergic diseases, obesity. When my uncle was president, 3% of Americans were obese. Today, 74% of Americans are obese or overweight. No other country has anything like this. In Japan, the obesity rate is still 3%. And epidemics are not caused by genes. Genes may provide the vulnerability, but you need an environmental toxin. Something is poisoning the American people. And we know that the primary culprits are our changing food supply, the switch to highly chemical intensive processed foods. We have 10,000 ingredients in our country, in our foods. The Europeans have only 400. If you buy McDonald's French fries in our country, there's 11 ingredients, my understanding. In Europe, there's only 3. If you buy Fruit Loops in our country, they're loaded with food dyes, with yellow dye, red dye, blue dye, and many other ingredients. The same company makes the same product with different ingredients for Canada and Europe. And at age, we don't have good science on all these things. And that is deliberate. That's a deliberate choice not to study the things that are truly making us sick, that are not only contributing to chronic disease, but to mortalities from infectious disease. We need to get a handle on this because if we don't, it's an existential threat. Our country is not going to be destroyed because we get the marginal tax rate wrong or because we get one of these culture war issues that we've been talking about today wrong. It's going to be destroyed if we continue down this trajectory of chronic disease. We need to fix our food supply, and that's the number one.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Certainly, I share your concern with ultra-processed foods. On the other end of this food chain are my farmers and ranchers back home. Would you just take a second and share your compassion, how you feel about farmers and ranchers, that they respond to the market. They don't dictate the market. They grow what the market is wanting them to grow.
And Senator Hawley told me the other day that his brother-in-laws are all farmers. And he said 4 out of every 5 of his brother-in-laws has Parkinson's disease. And that kind of cluster we're seeing across farm country of cancers, autoimmune diseases, obesity, et cetera. Oh, and we can now not export American food to Europe because the Europeans won't take our food. That's not good for farmers. We're also destroying our soil because some of the chemicals that farmers use destroy the microbiome. And that causes the erosion of the soil. You can't get water infiltration. Water pools up and it washes the soil off. Agronomists now estimate that we only have, if we continue doing these processes, only 60 harvests left before our soil is gone. So farmers are using seeds and chemicals that are, over the long term, are costing them and us. And what we need to do is we need to support the farmers. We need the farmers as partners if we're going to make them work. And I don't want a single farmer to go out of business under our watch. I don't regulate farms. If I'm privileged to be confirmed, I'm not regulating farms. That's under USDA. But I want to partner with all of my decisions with USDA and with the farm community to make sure that we don't lose more farmers in this country, but that we also transition. We offer and incentivize transitions to regenerative agriculture, to no-till agriculture, and to less chemically intensive. And by the way, I've also met with the chemical industry and the fertilizer and herbicide companies, and they want to do the same thing. Oh, and I think we're on the trajectory to do that, and we need to incentivize initiatives to accelerate that trajectory.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, the great news is that my farmers in Kansas are selling products to Europe, that today's regenerative practices, soil health, all those things are priorities for Kansas farmers. Many of us are doing many of those things already. We just need it to be more widespread. If I could just wrap up my remarks, though, is that, again, going back to the big picture here, 60% of Americans have a chronic disease. Mr. Kennedy, I believe for such a time as this that you're not just one of 300 million people. I think that you are the person to lead HHS to make America healthy again, that God has a divine purpose for you, and I look forward to your confirmation and working with you to make America healthy again.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. Senator Warnock.
Thank you so much, Chairman Crapo and Ranking Member Wyden. It's great to be here. Mr. Kennedy, welcome. Welcome to you and to your family. Thank you for meeting with me a few days ago. I'd like to follow up, if I might, with some of the issues that we discussed in my office. I want to talk to you first about the CDC, or the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. I'm proud of the work that the CDC does, proud that it's located in Georgia with more than 10,000 employees in my state. If confirmed, you would be the cabinet secretary over the CDC. Representing HHS, it's about 29% of the federal budget. CDC is a part of that. Do you agree that the CDC's work is critical to Georgia, critical for our country, and the health of the entire world?
Yes, Senator.
Senator Isaacson, my Republican predecessor, would have agreed with that. Bless his memory. He was a fierce advocate for the CDC, as am I. The CDC is an agency filled with hard-working, dedicated public health servants. They wake up every single day working to keep us safe. I think we don't think often enough about their work because it's easy not to celebrate the folks who are protecting you from that which doesn't appear because of the work that they're doing. So grateful for the work that the CDC employees do. Some of them are members of my church. I saw that deep commitment firsthand when I visited the CDC just last summer. Mr. Kennedy, you have compared the CDC's work to Nazi death camps. You've compared it to sexual abusers in the Catholic Church. You've also said that many of them belong, this is a direct quote, many of them belong in jail. For me, those are disturbing.
Break free with the new Opera GX, the browser that puts you in control with a brand new design that
American public safe every single day. And as you are presented as the nominee for this position, I need to know, do you stand by those statements that you made in the past, or do you retract those previous statements?
Senator, I don't believe that I ever compared the CDC to Nazi death camps. I support the CDC. My job is not to dismantle or harm the CDC. My job is to empower the scientists if I'm privileged to be confirmed.
So you retract those statements?
I'm not retracting it. I never said it.
Well, actually, I have a transcript
Of me saying that it's a Nazi death camp?
Let me read your words. It says that the institution CDC and the vaccine program, is your description of their work, is more important than the children that it's supposed to protect. And you know, it's the same reason we had a pedophile scandal in the Catholic Church. It's because people were able to convince themselves that the institution of the church was more important than these little boys and girls who were being raped. That's pretty provocative language. You said in another statement to me, this is like Nazi death camp. I mean, let me finish. I'm just reading your words. I mean, what happened to these kids? 1 in 31 boys in this country, their minds are being robbed from them.
Yeah, I was not comparing the CDC to Nazi death camps. I was comparing the injury rate to our children to other atrocities. And I wouldn't compare, of course, the CDC to Nazi death camps to the extent that any statement that I made has been interpreted that way. Yeah, I don't agree with that. In 2003, the United States Congress Government Oversight Committee ended an over a year investigation of the CDC and used almost that same language. They said that the CDC, just one division, one branch, the Immunization Safety Office, had put institutional self-interest and pharmaceutical profits ahead of the welfare and health of American children. So that was a conclusion by Congress. And I repeated that.
I'm asking you because you're the nominee for HHS. It sounds like you stand by those statements.
Senator, my objective is to support the CDC. There's nothing I'm going to do that is going to harm CDC. I want to make sure that our science is gold standard science, that it's free from that same Government Oversight Investigation Committee found that the panels, the ACIP panel within CDC, I think 97% of the people on it had conflicts. I don't believe that that's right. I think we need to end those conflicts and make sure that scientists are doing unobstructed science.
So I want to enter this statement, by the way, into the record without objection.
Without objection.
Last week, the White House gagged HHS and the CDC, preventing them from communicating all important public health information to anyone, including all of our allies, including our allies in the United States and global disease prevention. Can you just answer yes or no, because I'm running out of time? Do you agree with that action?
I was not consulted on it, but that's pretty much standard operating procedure for incoming administration.
So you agree with the action that gagged HHS and CDC from communicating important public health information to the
That
public?
directive made sure that no
You said,
public health and only non-essential travel and mass communications were temporarily suspended pending the confirmation of a new HHS secretary. This is standard operating procedure for every administration.
I get it. I don't think what we've seen over the last several days is standard operation for new administrations. I think we're seeing some unprecedented actions, but you agree with it. Last night, members of the CDC, along with other federal employees, were actually invited to resign, these buyouts. And I got text messages and folks I know work from the CDC, for the CDC, that do this important work, who got that note. And it's really important because my experience is that when you send out that kind of note, the folks who resign are the folks who you least likely want to see resign. They got other options. They're gifted folks. They got a lot of expertise. They have options. A lot of them are doing this work because of their patriotism, because of their commitment. Do you agree with the buyouts that were presented to CDC employees just last night?
I agree. At the vast majority of the scientists and experts at CDC are patriots and good government servants.
Can you tell me yes or no?
I don't think anybody's going to resign who's committed to making America healthy
again. Can you just answer yes? Okay, you agree with the buyouts. In our meeting, I asked you to confirm your support for the Affordable Care Act. You also mentioned that you and President Trump want to fix the ACA by making premiums more affordable. Can you answer me yes or no, as I don't have a lot of time? Did you know that tax credits that help families afford health insurance and save Georgians an average of $531 per month per person are set to expire at the end of the year? Did you know that?
I do.
We need to move on.
Do you support Congress extending these tax credits so that Americans can continue to afford health care?
Congress has to make its own decisions about that. My instructions from President Trump.
Mr. Chairman, you're saying I'm running out of time, but I'm having a lot of trouble getting the witness to answer yes or no to a yes or no question.
Well,
and I've got one more question.
You're almost at 9 minutes, sir.
Well, I need him to answer yes or no. Yes or no? Do you
I'm not going
support?
to answer yes or no to a question that's not susceptible to an honest yes or no answer.
Okay, I can't
We
get an
need to
answer.
move on.
I think that the fact that you find it difficult to answer basic questions is deeply troubling for me as you present yourself as a nominee to run HHS. Thank you so very much.
Senator Smith.
I've been in courts all over the country and prosecutors.
Mr. Chairman, you told me I'm out of time, and the witness continues to filibuster even after I said I'm done.
Senator Smith.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair and Ranking Member, and welcome, Mr. Kennedy. So, Mr. Kennedy, I don't have a question for you on abortion. I think that my colleagues on both sides of the aisle have covered this, but I want to say I can respect people who have different views than mine on this issue, but it's hard for me to respect people who won't give a straight answer to what they think on this issue in particular. Mr. Chair, I just want to note that I understand that anti-choice advocates have said that in these hearings they were looking to hear Mr. Kennedy provide some reassurance that he is on their side, and I'm not hearing that. And I think most Americans are looking for some hint that the decisions that people make about abortion should be personal and private, and they should be free to make those decisions without government interference, and I'm not hearing that either. To make it worse, the answers that you have given tell me that the Trump administration is more than willing to restrict or even ban medication abortion without a single act of Congress, and even in states where abortion is legal. And what is clear to me is that you and President Trump are dangerous to women's access to mifepristone. So having said that, I want to move to a different topic. Mr. Kennedy, I appreciate Senator Cornyn's questions about mental and behavioral health, something that I care a lot about. I know that you and your family have had personal experience with mental health challenges, as have I. And I agree that the mental health crisis in this country is a crisis. So let me ask you, in an interview in 2023 and again in 2024, you blamed school shootings on antidepressants. You said, and this is a quote, There is no time in American history or human history that kids were going to shoot schools and shooting their classmates. It really started happening coterminous with the introduction of these drugs, with Prozac and with other drugs. So do you believe, as you've said, that antidepressants cause school shootings? This should be a simple question.
I don't think anybody can answer that question, and I didn't answer that question. I said it
So
should be
your answer
studied.
is,
I said it should be studied along with other potential culprits,
so
like
they may cause.
social media. But I don't know. I would never make, because there's no science on that,
Well,
Senator.
there is, Senator, there is, Mr. Kennedy.
Thank you for the promotion.
The science shows that there is no link between school shootings and antidepressants. And in fact, most school shooters were not even treated with antidepressants. And of those that were, there was no evidence of association. You know,
I don't think you
my
can say
question
that,
is-
Senator, because HIPAA rules, nobody knows.
well, that is, Mr. Kennedy, do you think that people who take antidepressants are dangerous?
I think, listen, I'm not going into HHS if I'm privileged to be confirmed with any.
So you can't say that people
To
who-
impose any preconceived ideas that I may have. I just want to have
Okay,
good science.
So you're not saying that they aren't dangerous, which means that they could
I've
be
said-
dangerous. Let me ask you this.
That's not true.
You've described Americans who take mental health medications as addicts who need to be sent to wellness farms to recover. Is that what you believe?
No, of course, I didn't say that
Yes, you
anybody should be compelled to do anything.
No, but
I'm
you
for-
said they should be sent.
I said they should be available to them.
You
I
said
didn't
that-
say they should be sent.
You said that folks
Kicking and
that take
screaming.
antidepressants are like addicts. That I can provide that,
Oh, I
Mr.
think they
Chair.
should have the availability. Listen, I know people,
So-
including members of my family, who've had a much worse time getting off of SSRIs than they did than people have getting off of heroin. It's the withdrawal period is, I mean, and it's written
actually have
on the label.
I have some
This is
experience
very
with
well
this
documented.
myself, Mr. Kennedy. This is personal for me. When I was a young woman and I was struggling with depression, thankfully, I had the resources to help me get through it, including a new generation of SSRI uptake inhibitors, which helped to clear my mind, get me back on track to being a mom and a wife and a productive, happy person. And I'm really grateful for that therapy. So I have some experience with this, and I think that everyone should have access to that care. And your job as secretary is to expand access to care, not to spread lies and misinformation. And you know, the things that you say, Mr. Kennedy, they live on. They have impact. And you know, we're having this conversation at the same moment that my Republican colleagues are looking to try to figure out how to save money any way they can. And so they want to cut Medicaid. Let's just think about this for a minute, because you're going to be, should you be confirmed, you would be responsible for CMS, which provides mental and behavioral health care to millions of Americans. Close to 40% of folks on Medicaid have a behavioral health condition. And you would be part of this administration that would be looking to cut Medicaid. So, Mr. Kennedy, these statements that you've made linking antidepressants to school shootings, they reinforce the stigma that people who experience mental health every day face every single day. And I'm very concerned that this is another example of your record of sharing false and misleading information that actually really hurts people.
Senator, you're
Thank you, Mr.
mischaracterizing my statements.
I am only putting into the record what you have said, Mr. Kennedy.
You're mischaracterizing my statements, and I'm happy that you had a good experience on SSRIs. Many Americans have very good experience on it. Others have
That
not.
would be an issue between them and their physicians, and not for
And
the future
exactly.
head of HHS to be just putting out misinformation
Exactly.
about the dangers of SSRIs and other antidepressant medication, spreading the stigma and the fear that we're actually trying to overcome.
Do you think physicians, when they make that prescription, ought to have access to good science?
Of course they do, and
Right,
I
that's
don't
all
think
I
that
believe too. And you and I are in agreement, Senator.
And to your point that you made when you made these statements, it was not based on good science. I don't know what it was based on.
I was saying the science needed to be done. I was saying these are potential culprits. Were coterminous, and I named other things. I said video games. I said social media. I said SSRIs. SSRIs have a black box warning of suicidal, homicidal behavior.
Mr. Chair, I will submit to the chair the information that I have about what Mr. Kennedy has said, linking antidepressants to school shootings. Thank you.
Senator Young.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good to see you, Mr. Kennedy. To follow up on that spirited exchange, in talking with you and reading about your vision for the department, you said one of your goals is to return public health agencies to the gold standard of scientific review. You've alluded to the gold standard a number of times today. So I'm going to give you an opportunity, uninterrupted, but hopefully not too extensive, to tell me and others what you mean by this gold standard.
The gold standard means real scientific research with replication of studies, which very rarely happens now at NIH. We should be giving at least 20% of the NIH budgets to replication. We should make sure that all the science is published with the raw data. We should make sure that the peer reviews are also published. And I'll give you a quick example. 20 years ago, NIH scientists did a study on Alzheimer's, which they said it was caused by.
Raising Cane's invites you to grab life by the chicken fingers. Go on, savor the day. One love.
Join Planet Fitness and save $28 or more. Just $1 down, $15 a month. Deal ends January 31st.
800 studies on a fraudulent hypothesis, and we've lost 20 years in figuring 100 studies on a fraudulent hypothesis, and we've lost 20 years in figuring out how to a cure for Alzheimer's. And that's just one example. I could give you hundreds. We need to end that. We need to end the old boy system. We need to have replicatable science and be completely transparent about raw data.
Thank you, sir. In recent years, particularly during the COVID pandemic, there's been a lot of skepticism about our public health institutions. Some of this, I would say, is warranted, but it's now created a pervasive lack of trust from the public that these institutions are acting in bad faith or failing to act in objective criteria, failing, in short, to act in the best interests of the public. If confirmed, Mr. Kennedy, how will you work to regain the public's trust? I suspect it will take some time in these important public health institutions.
Through radical transparency, I'm going to make the reason people don't trust the public health agencies is because they haven't been trustworthy. And you gave the example of COVID. At the beginning of COVID, everybody was rushing to get that vaccine. We had over 90% vaccination uptake.
Yes, sir.
CDC's most recent recommendation is that Americans take the 8th booster. Only 23% of Americans are complying. That means 77% of Americans no longer trust CDC, and that is the problem.
Yes, sir. In the absence of full information, might it, I think agree with you, but I want your response. Might it make sense to share that absence of full information with the American people, that uncertainty? I think one of the things by observation and experience that I saw during the pandemic was we had certain prominent doctors appear on television and indicate, no, you absolutely must not wear a mask. 2 weeks later, it's yes, you must wear a mask. But they were certain. And they even demonized people for not following the latest science, knowing there's a high level of uncertainty in that science. Would a measure of humility, and as you say, radical transparency demonstrates humility, help rebuild trust over a period of years?
Absolutely. We need to tell Americans what we don't know. We need to make sure studies that reach a null hypothesis are also published. And that doesn't happen.
Sir, I think you are right about why healthcare costs are so high in the first place. The answer is indeed chronic disease. 90% of our healthcare spending goes towards managing it, as you say in your open statement. It's not in the main because of waste, fraud, and abuse, although we know some exist. It's not in the main because we have greedy executives at innovative, world-class companies. It's not in the main because we haven't yet adopted an unsustainable Medicare for All scheme. It's because of this. So I'm encouraged that you intend to make that a point of emphasis as it pertains to your future leadership. I will say, with respect to COVID, it's not over for a lot of Americans. It's not over. I know the mission accomplished banner was convenient for the last administration, but as we continue to navigate the ongoing impacts of the COVID pandemic, we have many individuals here in the United States and around the world who are suffering from long-term health effects that significantly impact their quality of life, work, and daily activities, and they've been largely ignored. Funding for long COVID research was appropriated by Congress in December of 2020, followed by additional funding directed by the Biden administration in February 2024. Patient groups and industry publications have criticized the slow pace of clinical trial design and enrollment. If confirmed, will you collaborate with healthcare providers, researchers, and effective communities to better understand and mitigate long COVID's impact? Yes or no, please?
Absolutely, Senator. There's 16 million Americans.
Will you commit to prioritizing long COVID research and integrate this work into broader healthcare policies? Yes or no, please?
Yes.
Patient groups, experts, and industry publications have raised concerns around existing long COVID funding being spent on observational research. In particular, criticism was directed towards recover funding being used to duplicate existing findings instead of funding trials for potential treatments or diagnostics. If confirmed, Mr. Kennedy, will you work with Congress so that going forward, long COVID funding will be directed primarily towards trial or novel research directions and not replicating existing observational research? Yes or no?
Absolutely, Senator, with enthusiasm.
Thank you so much. If confirmed, how will you create a balance between your personal priorities of chronic disease and healthy lifestyle and the ongoing critical work of the department in areas that are focused on incentivizing and advancing innovation in modern medicine and pharmaceutical discovery?
I think innovation is going to be the key to public health. And we have a unique opportunity now in history because of AI, because of telemedicine, and because of the quality of people that are now coming to HHS to actually save public health. But it's all going to rely on innovation, and I don't want to do anything that inhibits or impairs the pace of innovation.
That's encouraging. From approving AI algorithms to determining Medicare coverage, we certainly need more innovation, and we need good people in the department to assist with that effort. So I'll follow up with a question about how you're going to attract and retain good people. Thank you, Chairman.
Sorry to shut you down a little faster than I did the others, Senator. We are up against a vote deadline here, and we have one more senator who gets his full time. I hope you'll keep it as close to 5 minutes as you can, Senator Welch. And then I've promised Senator Wyden, 5 more minutes?
To be divided 1 minute with my colleagues getting 1 minute.
And then if we can do that, we can get over to vote before they call the vote on the floor.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. And as you know, I'm have great reverence for your family. I'm from Massachusetts. When I got out of college, I was in the first class of Robert Kennedy Fellows, the memorial created by your family to honor the service of your father. I do community organizing in the west side of Chicago. And I certainly admire your energy in your effort here and desire to serve. You know, there's a couple of things that are really important here. This is not just about a debate on vaccines. It's a debate about qualifications, experience, and priorities as to the person that will head Health and Human Services. And it's not just about what your answers are today or what the questions are. It obviously has a lot to do with your whole record and your whole history. you know, your sister in her letter, or pardon me, your cousin in her letter said, you've always been charismatic, able to attract others through the strength of your personality, willingness to take risk and break rules. That's, I guess, an attribute, but it can be a danger. The question I fundamentally have is whether your willingness to disrupt and maybe break rules is going to be dangerous and destructive. The character questions we didn't go into here, but there's some sketchy things you've acknowledged. Your history with heroin, you've gotten over that, but there's incidents that do, I think, concern the question of whether the stability is there to be in charge of this major organization. And that's compounded by my concern that you don't have any experience managing a large organization, that you don't have any experience in government. So those are things that have to be taken into account. But the issue for me is also priorities. A lot of your engagement in health has been on vaccines, big important issue. You actually disagreed, as I understand it, with President Trump about Operation Warp Speed. I think President Trump deserves a lot of credit for Operation Warp Speed. He knew we had to get a vaccine. And these other issues about a mask and whether you should wear it, whether when you got your groceries, the bag had to be left outside, remember that in the very beginning? Those are incidental to the core question that the president believed we had to have a vaccine. And you contested that. That worries me. That really deeply worries me. The other questions, Senator Cassidy asked you some questions about our healthcare system. I happen to believe that our healthcare system is profoundly broken. And it's not just about the chronic illnesses. That's about our diet. That's about our exercise. But we are getting premium increases in Vermont of 20% a year, 25% a year. And it's busting the bank for taxpayers. It's busting the bank for our wonderful Vermont employers who care about having health insurance that they can provide to their employees. Senator Cassidy asked you a couple of questions about how you would reform Medicaid, and I didn't hear an answer. You mentioned that you thought Medicare Advantage was good. You have a good plan. No focus on what an incredible ripoff was reported in the Wall Street Journal by United Healthcare, which was marketing Medicare Advantage and then paying doctors and nurses where they had assignments essentially to diagnose illnesses that didn't exist. So they made billions and billions of dollars. And I've seen nothing coming out of the Trump administration, and I've seen nothing coming out of your advocacy that is going after what is a rampant abuse by the insurance companies and overcharging people and not doing the job. And by the way, the United Healthcare people, when they did that, they overdiagnosed. When the person really got sick, they dumped them. They dumped them. Go to the nursing home on your own. That's a broken healthcare system. We spend the most and get the least. And I think there should be collective anger about this on both sides because all of our people are dependent on that healthcare system. And you're going to be working for a president who's on a lawless rampage right now, okay? He has done something reckless with the pardons to these cop beaters. I'm appalled by that. But that's just reckless. That's not illegal. He's impounded money. So right now, the Medicaid website went down. He's impounded money. So the community health centers that Senator Warner was talking about are up in the air as to what they can do. Do you believe that a president can impound money that has been appropriated by Congress?
Senator, let me answer the question about Medicare first. I have never defended that program or the rapacious behavior by insurance companies or the PBMs. I understand that's a huge problem. And
all right, I don't have time. We've got to get over to vote. So we can do this.
But you've asked me 5 questions. You got to give me a chance to answer one of them.
Please be brief.
Yeah, I brought in, if I get confirmed, I've already appointed a general counsel. The first time in history, he's a former prosecutor who prosecuted the biggest Medicare fraud in the case in the state of West Virginia. I brought in a prosecutor for that job instead of a bureaucrat, precisely to address the important issues that you raised here. The only reason I didn't talk about these before is because I wasn't asked about them.
What about-
I agree with you 100%.
What about impounding, a president impounding money that, among other things, goes to healthcare?
And you're saying that that's illegal?
That's correct.
Well, my job is to uphold the Constitution. I'm going to take an oath to uphold the Constitution, and I will administer the law and uphold the Constitution.
Mr. Chairman, I believe under what we've discussed, I control 5 minutes. I'm going to take one and give one to each of my 4 colleagues that remain.
All right, and I would just say this vote, they're going to call it in about 8 minutes.
Thank you.
So we have very little time.
2 hours ago, colleagues, I asked Mr. Kennedy to reconcile his many anti-vaccine statements with his handful of pro-vaccine statements. Instead, he gave us a word salad and ducked the issue. The same was true, Mr. Kennedy, with respect to measles, where you wrote a book playing down the threat of measles, even though American families are very concerned about it, and apparently families are still mourning in Samoa. And my last point would be that Mr. Kennedy said today really wasn't about him. And I just want to tell him it is all about you, because I find your presentation to be both untrustworthy and unprepared, because my colleagues have been seeing back and forth between Medicare and Medicaid, and it's not clear which program you're using when. So I want colleagues to know there is a lot more information to learn about Mr. Kennedy before we vote. I'm going to urge that to my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to not make decisions on the basis of this session. I thank you for the additional time. And I guess my next minute is Senator Whitehouse, Senator Warren, and Senator Smith.
And again, 1 minute each, please.
There's been a lot of conversation about late-term abortions here, and I just want to make clear what Rhode Island OBGYN doctors describe as what is almost always happening when a late-term abortion is needed. It is a childbirth gone wrong. The family has painted the room, it has bought the crib, maybe even decided on the baby's name, and has gone to the hospital to welcome the new baby into their family in what is supposed to be a happy event. And then things went wrong. Then the alarms started pinging. The lights started flashing. The medical professionals started rushing in. And the question became, who lives and who dies? The mom's life is often at risk, and she may have other children she needs to care for. The baby's life may be at risk, and one or both may die. In that environment, the doctors and the family own that decision. Government has no place in that room at that point. And I think we need to understand when this late-term abortion gets bandied about, what you're dealing with is a tragedy that is happening to a family who wanted that child and have suddenly been confronted with a moment in which they have to make what is probably going to be the worst decision of their lives. And to try to shove the state legislature into that room is really offensive, really morally wrong. And I just want to make very clear what Rhode Island OBGYNs tell me is the situation when these procedures have to be deployed.
Senator Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Mr. Kennedy, I wanted to ask about your role in the 2019 measles outbreak in Samoa. In July 2018, 2 children died immediately after receiving a measles vaccine that nurses had mistakenly mixed with a muscle relaxant. The nurses get charged with manslaughter, but vaccination rates go down. I asked you about this in my office. You told me flatly that your visit.
Get out of this cold and into the hottest deals at Security Dodge now. No money down leases starting at $159.
I have the document. nothing to do with vaccinations. We now know that's not true. I have the documentation. You met with the Prime Minister. You talked about vaccinations. You met with an anti-vaccine influencer who described the meeting as, quote, profoundly monumental for this movement. So what happens? Vaccinations go down, there's a measles outbreak, and children start dying. But you double down. You didn't give up. Just 4 days after the Prime Minister declared a state of emergency, 16 people already dead. You sent a letter to him promoting the idea that the children had died not from measles, but from, quote, defective vaccine. You launched the idea that a measles vaccine caused these deaths. You are a very influential man. In fact, you are called the leader of the Disinformation Dozen. UNICEF and WHO, the World Health Organization, investigated this. They say the claims are false. It is not biologically possible what you claimed. And yet, ultimately, more than 70 people died because they didn't get vaccines. So my question is, do you accept even a scintilla, just even a sliver of responsibility for the drop in vaccinations and the subsequent deaths of more than 70 people? Anything you do differently?
No, absolutely not. There were 2 incidents which children died in 2015 and again in 2015, it was from the measles vaccine. That's what the New Zealand General Hospital found. The government of Samoa banned the measles vaccine after the 2018. I arrived in July of the next year after the ban had been in place for a year.
Mr.
And
Chairman,
the measles,
understanding that you wanted to hold this to a minute and that I don't get to present all the facts and documentation I've got, how about if we just decide to make entries for the record on exactly what the record shows about Mr. Kennedy's participation? And I think he's answered the yes or no question. He takes no responsibility.
Senator Warren, we will do that.
differently.
And Mr. Kennedy, and to all the senators, every senator knows that following this hearing, they will be able to ask you questions off the record, and you will be able to put answers back onto the record. So please give that answer. I apologize that we're shutting you off for giving a full response right now. Senator Smith, and
thank
we
you.
are way over time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Mr. Kennedy, you have said that you want to give infectious diseases a break for about 8 years. You spoke about this with Senator Cantwell. My question to you has to do with avian flu. Over 100 million birds culled. The disease has spread to dairy cows.
We could do that all the livelong day, but I think a half hour worth of Democrat nonsense was quite enough. Of course, Chief Hiawatha had to come back in at the end with her misinformation about Bobby Kennedy and some measles outbreak in Samoa, which of course he had nothing to do with. But Elizabeth Warren wouldn't know that because she only showed up for half of the committee hearing. Guys, let's get rocking and rolling here. My name is Kevin Smith. Thank you all so much for tuning into another phenomenal episode of Loud Majority Live. What the hell? I got a light out. All right, I'll get that worked out later on. Look, guys, between the committee hearings and all that has gone on over the course of the last several days, I mean, this news cycle moves in an unbelievable rate. So we're trying to bring you guys as much stuff as we can as we move forward. So we do like the fact that you guys are kicking it with us right now. Want to give a shout out to everybody who is watching. There's so many people watching all over the place. We got big number today. I'm liking it. Also, real quick, guys, do me a favor. We have just hit 99,000 followers here on Rumble. I really dislike unround numbers. So if you could share this out and help us get to 100,000 followers. I know if you get 100,000 on YouTube, they give you some kind of a plaque. I don't know if Rumble does that, but I would certainly like Jeremy to get that. Shout out to everybody watching. Liz, how are you? John, how are you? Sneaking out, what's going on? Creative Aaron, what is happening? Hope I'm healthy today. Yes, I'm feeling good. Feeling good in the neighborhood. Things are very good over here after my stint in the hospital where almost nothing could possibly fix me. There is so much stuff we could get to as I said, over the last couple of days, but I thought we'd have a little bit of fun. I thought we would have a little bit of fun because I don't know if we got a chance to talk about this yesterday. Jim Acosta is out at CNN in one of the funniest things I think I have ever seen in my life. CNN, and look, I don't like Jim Acosta at all. However, what they did to him at CNN, oh, did they do him dirty. Oh, did they do Jim Acosta dirty. So a little inside baseball on how media works, okay? You sign a contract, you're there for an extended period of time, the network doesn't want you around anymore. So what they do is they say, we're not going to fire you, Jim Acosta. We are just going to take your 10 a.m. show and we're going to move it to midnight. Which, look, whatever industry you are in, having your life dramatically altered and working from 10 in the morning, starting work at 10 in the morning to starting work at midnight is going to have a serious impact on your life. They do that so you leave. They do that so they don't have to fire you and pay you out the remainder of your contract. But they did that to good old Jim Acosta. Here that was.
It is never a good time to bow down to a tyrant. I've always believed it's the job of the press to hold power to account. I've always tried to do that here at CNN, and I plan on doing all of that in the future. One final message. Don't give in to the lies. Don't give in to the fear. Hold on to the truth and to hope. Even if you have to get out your phone, record that message. I will not give in to the lies. I will not give in to the fear. Post it on your social media so people can hear from you too. I'll have more to say about my plans in the coming days, but until then, I want to thank all of you for tuning in. It has been an honor to be welcomed into your home for all these years. That's the news. Reporting from Washington, I'm Jim Acosta.
Why do I show you Jim Acosta? Nobody cares. I think he had the highest rated daytime show on CNN, which is kind of like being the skinniest fat person in the room. Why do I show you that? Because we owe Jim Acosta a great deal here on the American Right. We owe Jim Acosta a great deal. Kevin, what the hell are you talking about? Without Jim Acosta, we would not have the imposition and we would not have the quote, "You are fake news," as Donald Trump has so eloquently dubbed most of the people on CNN. You are fake news. Of course, Jim Acosta was the first one to get that moniker from the President of the United States, as he grandstanded, as people on CNN tend to do. So we're gonna need someone to fill the Jim Acosta role over at CNN. We're going to need it. We're going to miss out on having Jim Acosta. See, look, I want to be clear. I don't want The View to go anywhere. I don't want Jim Acosta to go anywhere. I don't want these people to disappear, because if they disappear, what the hell are we going to talk about? Do you know how much fun it is on this show making fun of the idiots on The View? Do you know how much fun it is making fun of Humpty Dumpty Brian Stelter, who I think should get Jim Acosta's TV slot? I think they should bring Jim Acosta back, and we should have reliable sources every single day, because there's no one on planet Earth less self-aware than Brian Stelter. Think of the laughs. I mean, think about it. If I couldn't make fun of Sunny Hostin all day for her husband ripping off Medicaid and overcharging people, allegedly for the lawyers out there, if I couldn't do that, what sort of fun would we be having? Yes, my uncle in the chat, we need more Don Lemon. We need more Don Lemon. We need more Don Lemon saying, quote, "We should not demonize people in this country except for white men." That's a quote. We need more of that. Because do you guys understand how hard it is to find hilarious stories all day long that people, and I mean this, have a hard time actually believing are true? We need people like Jim Acosta. We need people like Jim Acosta as we are rocking, as we are rolling here, because I do have one funny-ass story for you that I think you will all enjoy. We're going to get to that in one bit. Before we do that, guys, head on over to lfatv.us. That's lfatv.us. That's your home base, your mothership, your landing pad for all things LFATV related. Check out the LFATV store. And while you guys are there, consider becoming a monthly donor here to LFATV. Boom! Look at that. Let's get that live chat up. Over 1,000 watching live. I'm liking it. I'm liking it an awful lot. Shout out to everybody watching new in the chat. You guys know I love all of the new people. All the new people that come in here every single day. Boom. So, thank you all so much for coming in. Once again, guys, hit that thumbs up button. 1,000 people watching. We've been getting over 300 rumbles every single day, and I'm liking it. I'm liking it a lot. Let's see if we can get over that today. So, speaking of stories that are so unbelievable, you're not going to believe it. I'm going to show you a video quickly of a gigantic, of a rotund, of a land whale who is currently suing Lyft for multi-millions of dollars because she was too fat to fit in the car. I promise you, this is a real story, and I had to make sure I got to it. So, a woman in Detroit, apparently she's a rapper of some kind, is an overflowing tub of goo. She is currently suing Lyft because the driver claimed she was too fat to get in the car.
Blanding tells us she was just trying to get to a Detroit Lions watch party this month when her Lyft rolled up.
As I'm walking, I see him like making faces or whatever. I'm like, oh man.
She already knew.
I can fit in this car.
No, believe me, you can.
Yes, I can.
Believe me.
He told her there's not enough room in his car.
The kicker part was when he started to talk about his tires. You know, I feel like that was a slap in the face. That was like my tires, you know, like.
The driver said his tires could not handle her weight.
Every big person you turn down because they can't fit in your car?
Yeah, because they need to order the Uber XL.
No, I don't never have to order Uber XL.
He apologized, canceled the ride, and left her there. The rapper says she's pretty tough.
I get the money and flip it and make some food.
Dank DeMoss, as she's known at the mic, is crushed by the whole situation.
I just want them to know, like, it really hurt my feelings.
It looks like Lyft might be hurting pretty soon, too.
I knew it was illegal, and I knew that it was wrong.
Her attorneys, John Marco and Zach Runyon, say weight is a protected characteristic in Michigan by law.
It would be no different than a driver pulling up and saying, you know, I don't want to have black people in my car, or I don't want to have Christians in my car, or Muslims in my car. It's the same. Under the law, it's the same.
The lawsuit is filed. Since she posted the encounter on social media, other full-figured folks have reached out saying the same thing happened to them.
So then walk. Not for nothing, I don't want to be a dick, but, you know, maybe if you're too fat to fit into somebody's car, maybe that's a sign you should be walking a little bit more. And I'm saying that as a guy who could probably shed a couple of pounds, but I have never been unable to fit in the back seat of a vehicle. I mean, at what point do you look at yourself in the mirror and go, yeah, you know, maybe I'm just a giant tub of goo? I mean, what are we doing? You know what? This is one of the people who claim we need tort reform in this country are absolutely correct. You know, you guys ever look at the side of like a packaging and you think to yourself, who is the dumbass that sued, you know, the iron company, like the ironing for your clothes, that there has to be a label on the back of it that says, do not iron clothing while wearing it? It's people like that. Or if you look at the shower cap in a hotel, on the side of the box, it says only made for one head. Like, these are the things we've got to worry about. But of course, guys, we got to think about what's really important here. And God forbid somebody who works at the airline has to pick up my bag that weighs more than 45 pounds. By the way, she's also suing because he apparently used the incorrect pronouns for her. She wanted to let him know that her pronouns are fee, fi, fo, and fum. Obviously, I'm kidding. That's not part of the lawsuit. But, so be it. I don't really care. Man, I guess she picked that rap name because Biggie Smalls was already taken. The jokes just sort of write themselves here, guys. That's the problem with America. That is something Bobby Kennedy should fix. I mean, how much corn syrup do you need to eat to get to be that big? I don't know. It's absolutely shocking. Shocking stuff. So, guys, obviously the show is... could she even get through the car door? I don't believe so. I think she wanted to travel on top of the vehicle. I think she wanted to travel on top of the vehicle. At that point, you should just order an F-150. They can just tow you in the back like a boat. I'm sure she's also incredibly buoyant. But look, guys, the show got cut a little short today, obviously, because we wanted to show you guys the remainder of the hearing. There's so much stuff we could be talking about, so much stuff we could have talked about over the last several days, but the news moves just way too quickly. So before we keep rocking and rolling here, because I feel like I've done you guys wrong here. I feel like I have been improper to you. Because I haven't shown you Scott Jennings making people look stupid on CNN in quite some time. I feel like I owe that to you. Before we get to that, guys, head on over to loudmajorityusa.com. That's loudmajorityusa.com. Sign up for the newsletter. Check out our shop. It shouldn't shock any of you. It should not shock any of you that St. Patrick's Day is one of my favorite holidays out there because I am a fan of the beverage. So, for anybody out there who's ready for the St. Patrick's Day goodies, make sure you guys... where'd it go? There we go. Make sure you guys check out the new... Y'all ready for this? I think you guys are going to like this. Anybody out there like St. Patrick's Day? Oh, come on. I can't use it. All right, we can't do that at the moment. Well, you know what? I'll do it this way. I'll do it this way since apparently it's not working. Guys, we got a new shirt... We got a new shirt over at the Loud Majority. Check this out. The Kiss Me, I'm MAGA shirt for your St. Patrick's Day gatherings. You guys are going to want to pick that up at loudmajorityusa.com. Sign up for the newsletter. Check out our shop. We've got them in virtually every green color imaginable. We got them in light green and dark green. We got it in military green or this Irish green. Pick that up today, loudmajorityusa.com. That's loudmajorityusa.com. Use promo code LFA to get 20% off everything on the website. That's promo code LFA to get 20% off everything on the website. loudmajorityusa.com. It's loudmajority. I don't know why that didn't come up the right way the first time. So guys, go to loudmajorityusa.com. That's the best way to support this program and everything we've got going over here. Use promo code LFA to get 20% off everything on the website. So we didn't even get to talk about the fact that Donald Trump made the president of Colombia his bitch, or his papacito, as they would say in Colombia. So over the course of the last several days, Donald Trump has begun sending flights of illegal immigrants back from whence they came. And the president of Colombia was very, very upset about this. Now, I'm sure Colombia has sent us hundreds and hundreds of thousands of some of their worst people imaginable, but we decided to send back like 87 of their criminals, and they didn't like it very much. And Donald Trump, at the beginning of his golf round, decided that he was going to start a trade war, which he ended up winning by the time he got to the back nine, which is impressive. Most people I know can't finish a 12-pack in a round of golf, and Donald Trump decided to win a trade war in that time. Here was Scott Jennings making everyone over on CNN look incredibly stupid.
The reason Donald Trump had to resort to these tariffs and sanctions and punishments today is because the president of Colombia refused to accept a flight of migrants. He said he wouldn't take them. Donald Trump said, we're going to enter the F around and find out portion of this conversation. And he hit him with sanctions and tariffs. And now tonight, the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, says Congress is going to back him up on that. He's putting Colombia, he's putting the rest of this hemisphere on notice that you are not dealing with the same president that you were. You're dealing with someone who is taking illegal immigration seriously. Now, within an hour of making that threat, the president of Colombia said, whoa, 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 I'll send my own plane to pick these people up. So obviously he got their attention. And they'll have learned a valuable lesson that Donald Trump is taking immigration, illegal immigration, seriously. This is real leadership, but it sends a message to everybody else in the hemisphere. Do not test us. This is not Biden and Harris. This is Trump and Vance. We mean business. Yeah, of course it is. And, you know, it happened under Barack Obama, actually. He deported millions upon millions of people, and I don't have any recollection of the U.S. economy collapsing. And no Republican, and I don't think most Americans are taking seriously the argument that the U.S. economy is underpinned by violent, criminal, illegal immigrants. I mean, if our entire economy is underpinned by people who are rapists and murderers and commit other violent acts, then you know, we got a whole other set of issues going on in the economy that we ought to talk about today. I mean, people just aren't buying that argument. So the populations that they are starting with are violent, criminal, illegal aliens. Then they also have 1.5 million people who have existing, fully adjudicated orders. And beyond that, I would just point out that if you came to this country illegally, you're already a criminal, illegal immigrant. You've already broken our laws, even if you haven't been arrested yet or charged with it. If you're here illegally, if you broke our laws, then you're going to be targeted. Now, maybe you're not going to be a top priority today because there's other more dangerous people here, but we cannot send a message that, well, some illegal immigration is okay. And that's been the problem of the last 4 years. Basically, Biden and Harris were like, just get here and it'll probably work out for you. That is no longer the communication strategy of the U.S. government. The strategy is don't try us. Whether you're the president of Colombia or somebody who just walked across the border illegally, do not try us. It is not going to work out for you, period.
I am so jealous of Scott Jennings. I want his job. Not that I want him fired, but I would just like his job if he ever decides to give it up. If he ever decides to give it up, we have reached the F around and find out portion of this administration. Donald Trump continues to exert this pressure on countries all over the planet. And why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't we exert our power around the globe? What the hell is the point? What is the point of being the last superpower in the world if we are not going to flex our muscles now and again? At that point, we might as well just become like everybody else. At that point, we might as well just become like everyone else. We might as well stop funding the wars all over the world because we are not a superpower if we can't tell other countries that they're going to take back their criminals. This sort of stuff should not be complicated. It should not be something that we even have to discuss. But unfortunately, these things happen. Unfortunately, we have to speak very slowly to many stupid people out there. One person who apparently is getting the hint that, things are going to be a little bit different in America from now on. Things are going to be a little bit different is a man that I have never heard of before, but apparently is out there just speaking some sense. Before we get to that, guys, Mike Lindell.
You're still looking good.
I'm still feeling good. You know, I've got all your MyPillow products. Mattress topper, bed sheets, MyPillows, towels, slippers, blankets, sleepwear.
Whoa, Charles. Everyone now can get MyPillow products at huge discounts at MyPillow.com. That's right. Now's the time to go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to take advantage of our 3-in-1 sale. We're bringing you exciting new products, overstock specials, and closeout deals you won't find anywhere else. For example, when you buy one of our brand new MyPillow 2.0s, you get another one absolutely free. And with our overstock sale, you save 50% on our luxurious Giza Dream bed sheets. That's as low as $29.99 for the best sheets ever. And with our biggest closeout special, you get our all-season slippers for only $35. Or our sandals and slides for just $25. Quantities are limited, and once they're gone, they're gone.
Guys, head on over to MyPillow.com. Promo code LOUD. That's MyPillow.com. Promo code LOUD. For up to 80% off everything on the website. That's MyPillow.com. Promo code LOUD. So obviously there is a new sheriff in town. All right? We know that we have seen dramatic change from this administration over the course of the last several weeks. And change has been for the better. And the rest of the world is starting to figure it out themselves. It took them a little bit longer than we would have liked, but some people are starting to figure it out. Here is a guy, I got to be honest with you, I've never heard of before. I actually don't even know what his name is. But he's the former president of Kenya, who apparently began to mock all the African countries because Donald Trump has frozen foreign aid heading to those countries. Listen to this guy. I like this guy.
People the other day crying, oh, I don't know, Trump has removed money. He said he's not giving us any more money. Watu wanalia. Why are you crying? It's not your government, it's not your country. He has no reason to give you anything. I mean, you don't pay taxes in America. He is appealing to his people. Shauri yenu bwana. This is a wake-up call for you to say, okay, what are we going to do to help ourselves? Instead of crying, tujiulize, what are we going to do? Haya, ametoa hiyo pesa, sasa tutafanya namna gani jameni? What are we going to do? Yeah? To support ourselves. Because nobody is going to continue holding out a hand there to give you. It is time for us to use our resources for the right things. We are the ones who are using them for the wrong things.
Exactly. I absolutely agree with this guy. How long do we have to fund you? And now the African nations are out there bitching and moaning that we're not going to send them money anymore. First off, Africa, I want to make this very clear. In the era in which we live, you control basically all of the natural resources that we need to move into the 21st century. Places like the Congo, places like Liberia, they should be the economic powerhouses right now with the amount of rare earth minerals that they have. Unfortunately, they have yet to get their shit together, so they haven't been able to establish the foundations that are required to take advantage of all those natural resources, despite the fact they've been getting handouts from the West for the last 100 years. Many liberals will watch this and say, well, we exploited these people and we did this and we did that, because never ever leave it up to a leftist to ever take responsibility for anything that another country has done to itself, like have roving bands of warlords that have killed people and led to famines all over the world. No. It's got to be the fault of the Americans. Can never be anybody else's fault. Can never be anyone else's fault. I am so done with being the sugar daddies of the world. At least sugar daddies get something in return. I have yet to figure out what Americans are actually getting in return for the fact that we fund everything around the world. Like Carolyn Levitt said the other day. Like Carolyn Levitt said yesterday. So far, we have stopped. Look, I want to be clear. If they stop nothing else, if Doge is able to stop nothing else, I am happy to know, and I am happy to report to you, that we will no longer be sending $50 million worth of condoms to Gaza. A couple of things here. And I want to make sure I point this out because there's a few things I've got some questions about. Number one, why are we sending condoms to Gaza? Why are we sending condoms to any country? But number three, $50 million in... Do you know how many condoms that is? That's like 40 condoms per adult male. What? That is so much. That is like an absurd amount of rubbers. How much banging are you doing over there? How much, I am flummoxed by the amount of rubbers we are sending over to Gaza. I don't even know they're allowed to use condoms. Also, why is that our responsibility? Questions I'm sure I will absolutely never, ever get the answers to. That's so many condoms. That's like 40 condoms per guy. Find a hobby. Do something else. Just a thought. Guys, before we wrap up today, I want to make sure I show you guys this. Because Nicole Shanahan, you guys will remember Nicole Shanahan. She ran with Bobby Kennedy as his vice president. She has laid down the gauntlet to senators who are choosing to vote against Bobby Kennedy. Here is Nicole Shanahan. Yes, say more.
Hey everyone, tomorrow is a pivotal moment in our nation's history. At 10 a.m. Eastern Time, RFK will sit in front of the Senate Finance Committee for his confirmation hearing to be our nation's next Secretary of Health and Human Services. I urge everyone to call their U.S. senators over the following days and demand they vote yes on Bobby's nomination. He is more than qualified, he's proven, principled, and prepared to lead. I'll share a list below of key senators. If they represent your state, they need to hear from you. If they don't, please call your own senator and ask them to vote yes. We need as many votes as we can get. So this hasn't been widely reported, but in 2020, I cut large checks to Chuck Schumer to help Democrats flip 2 Senate seats in Georgia from red to blue. The 2 candidates I helped elect, Senator Raphael Warnock and Senator Jon Ossoff, please know I will be watching your votes very closely. I will make it my personal mission that you lose your seats in the Senate if you vote against the future health of America's children. And more than that, I also want to say to Senators Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham, Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins, Bill Cassidy, Tom Tillis, James Lankford, Cory Booker, John Fetterman, Bernie Sanders, and Catherine Cortez Masto, this is a bipartisan message, and it comes directly from me. While Bobby may be willing to play nice, I won't. If you vote against him, I will personally fund challengers to primary you in your next election, and I will enlist hundreds of thousands to join me. Big Pharma and Big Ag have exploited us for far too long. It ends now. You're either on the side of transparency and accountability, or you are standing in the way. The choice is yours. Please choose wisely.
I love how nicely she just told everybody F-A-F-O. Nicole, if you need any help, I will be glad to help. Glad to help. Guys, I ran over Will Johnson coming up next. We crossed 300. I'm liking it, guys. Make sure you head on over to loudmajorityusa.com. Pick up your Kiss Me I'm MAGA shirt for St. Patrick's Day. We've also got V-necks for Valentine's Day. Check those out. We got a bunch of V-necks over there. Giddy up. Let's go. V-necks for the ladies. Guys, Will Johnson right here. Until tomorrow, everybody. Stay loud.